This is a bit of I guess you could say, a response to a request that somebody asked me to do. You see, back in 2008, around that time, I did a series of videos, which you could see here on YouTube. And if you want to, you can Google them when you go to my channel. And they're basically about Sonic's love life. And I've mentioned several characters, from Sally, I think, to Mina, to Fiona, name it. And I think even Amy Rose. And some people have been asking me to do it again, and I'm considering it. But right now, I want to basically talk about something that a fan requested me to talk about. You see, when I talked about Fiona and the Sonic Love Life deal, I talked about a situation. I think I did. I have to rewatch it again. Well, I mentioned about the whole situation with Tails' infatuation with her. And as a matter of fact, I did a Tails Love Life, I believe, where I talked about her as well. Well, you see, this whole infatuation that Tails had with Fiona goes back a lot longer than that. It goes back to the, goes back to around the teen issues, basically the late teen issues, if you will. Around the time that they was getting ready to, they not getting ready to, but around the time that they had basically had already established the spin-off series. Basically, this was at a time where certain characters were given their own comic book series for about 3 to 4 months. The first one was Sally, and Tails was the second one. Well, Tails stories came out of several issues, like I said, in the late teens of the comic, called Growing Pains. And Tails had encountered a female fox on an island that was held prisoner on an island, named Fiona. Now, Fiona here seemed to be about the same age as Tails, and basically it was love at first sight. However, and this is spoilers for anybody that's not read this yet, however, the Fiona turns out to be an automatronic. An automatronic, basically. An automatronic or an animatronic, if you will. Automatronic, animatronic, whatever you want to call it. So she turns out to be that. And, to be honest, it's not the first time we've seen this kind of stuff. Back in the Sat AM episode Sonic and Sally, Sally was replaced by an animatronic of herself. That only Tails was able to, Tails of all characters, was able to notice was not the real Sally. Was basically clued in by himself that, hey, I know Sally very well, and this is not Sally. So basically, that's what happened here. Tails had no idea that the Fiona that he had fallen in love with was a trap, was an automatronic or animatronic trap set by Robotnik to try to roboticize him, which of course backfired. And this led into a squabble between between Fiona, the robotic Fiona, and Tails. The robotic Fiona nearly beat Tails by almost drowning him, but because of the fact that she was not waterproof, she ended up rusting. And Tails left her on the island, basically with a promise to someday come back and repair her, or get Robotnik to repair her, which of course Robotnik said, "The hell with you, I ain't doing it." And Tails basically, though, didn't, like I said, made the vow to someday bring her back to normal, or bring her back to life. And the last panel, which is basically a lead-in to the Tails miniseries, because Tails discovers a map to a down-under operation that Robotnik is doing. Tails leaves the Fiona bot on the island as a memorial. And the last image you see of the Fiona bot is Tails is sailing away in his submarine, or his sub-fox, if you will, is a tear coming out of the robotic Fiona's eye. Now, fast forward later on in the Knuckles comics, as well as in some of the backup stories in the Knuckles comics and in the Sonic comics, and we find out that the Fiona robot was based on a real character named Fiona. And we find out that this Fiona is actually older, and as we fast forward even more, we find out from Fiona that the Fiona bot was based on her 10-year-old self. That when Tails encountered this robot, the real Fiona had already become a teenager, and this robot was based more on her 10-year-old self. Confusing, right? Well, when Tails finds this out from Fiona, he finds this out when he catches Fiona and Sonic making out. Yeah. He catches them, making out. And basically he tries to convince Fiona, hey, look, maybe we could try, or maybe if you wait for a while in time and all that. And she's like, look, I really like you, I really do, but you're too young. Sonic, is the right age for me, and stuff like that. And of course, this not only hurts Tails' feelings, but it gets him angry to the point that he yells in Sonic's face, I hate you. Yeah. So, of course, this starts to build up to something that Ian Flynn does in issue 170, issue 178 and 179. Yeah. This leads up to it. Now, you might be saying, well, how did this all come about? Well, basically, how this all came about, basically how this all came about actually all started in the, it actually all started in the in issue 134. Yeah. In issue 134, Sonic notices Tails being friendly with Fiona, and Sonic's like, you know what, and Sonic's kind of worried, like, he doesn't want his buddy's feelings to get hurt again because of his past encounters with the Fiona animatronic. So, yeah, basically, I guess what you could say under the writingship of Carl Bowlers and then later on Ken Penders, Sonic ended up becoming Fiona's boyfriend. Yeah. Penders and Bowlers, mostly Penders later on, put Fiona with Sonic. Excuse me. Excuse me again. I'm drinking a little Pepsi here, so I got the burps there. But like I said, they ended up pairing Sonic with Fiona. Now, of course, this did upset some fans, and actually some fans welcomed the change because it's like, okay, she kind of has that Sally-like look and design and everything, but guess what? She's different. She's an original character, like Sally, but she's an original character from the book, and you could see that there's a bit of a edginess towards her. Because if you watch if you read the issues before 134, which are the triple takeover issues, you see Fiona looking at a gun and saying, hey, this can take care of a lot of business, but yet you have Rhoda kind of berate her a little bit by saying, Fiona, that's not how we are. That's not who we are. So, yeah, basically you have some kind of clue as to how Fiona is at times and what kind of solutions Fiona finds to be the best solutions or the easiest solutions to take care of things. So basically, we get to 134, like I said, and we notice that moment. And then, of course, as we get close to the story, which is one of Ken Pender's last stories, which is Line of Succession, that is where, believe it or not, I think we get the whole Tails confronting Sonic and Tails situation and the infamous Tails line of I hate you towards Sonic. And of course, Sonic wants to go after him, but Fiona's like, it's okay. It's all right. He's young right now. He doesn't understand, kind of deal. Basically, she's telling Sonic, let him be. He'll get over it in time, and hopefully understand the reason. The reason why. But anyway, fast forward, if you will, a little bit more, and we start seeing issues really tell a little bit of Fiona's story, if you will, or basically issues that start to reveal a little bit of Fiona's real background, her real self, if you will. I know I say if you will a lot, so I apologize on that. But we see a lot of stories where Fiona's missing in action. Yeah, we see her missing in action. Now, at first, when it comes to Birthday Bash, this is where you start to kind of get an idea that there's more to Fiona than meets the eye. And sorry for the interruption there, folks. Thought I heard something. Mostly heard somebody, if you know what I mean. But anyway, we get to starting with Birthday Bash and then the issues that follow, we start getting more of a revelation or reveal of Fiona's past. And by getting more of a reveal and revelation, we kind of get more of an idea of who Fiona really is. And then issues that follow Birthday Bash, which is Ian Flynn's first official story on the comic, and going through that and Darkest Storm and somewhat, and even the revelation of the Atom character. We get to an issue later on because throughout all this, leading up to the 170 issues, the beginning of the 170 issues, Fiona's kind of missing in action. And no one can understand where she's at, where she's gone. And it isn't until later on, in I think it's 172, where we get the revelation that Fiona has been sneaking off and seeing Scourge, formerly the anti-Sonic, evil Sonic from the anti-Mobius world. And we find out that the reason she's seeing him is because she's the only one that figured out around the 150 and 150 issues, 150 anniversary, the 150th anniversary issue, 151 issue, that the Sonic that was basically becoming a playboy, a player, if you will, and hanging out with all the different girls like Mina, or trying to hit on and actually get with some of the different girls around there like Mina and Bunny and even Amy, and then at the end Rouge, that she's the only one because of her underworld experience, her around the world and basically underworld experience, that she's the only one that can differ and see that the Sonic that was there doing that was not the real Sonic, and that it was actually the anti-Sonic. It was the evil Sonic. And this, I'm guessing she was one of them that he hit on and basically was trying to pick up on. She found attractive in him and thought, hey, if I can find that attractiveness, that bad boy side, that edgy bad boy side, basically she's like, hey, if I can be attracted to this edgy bad boy rated R side of evil Sonic before he became Scourge, she's basically like, if I can be attracted to that, maybe I can find the same thing in the real Sonic whenever he comes back, because she knew eventually he would come back. But anyway, she eventually couldn't find it, and thus she ended up going more with Scourge, and that's why she had disappeared over the few issues, because it was building up to the fact that she was going to defunct defunct, but she was going to defect from the Freedom Fighters and go with Scourge and be part of his suppression squad. That's what she was going to do. She was going to turn her back on the Freedom Fighters and join the suppression squad. And join it because she wanted to be with Scourge, and that's what happened. So thus, she went. So basically, for about, I'm guessing, 40 issues or so. So I'm guessing for about 40 issues, she went from being a freedom fighter to 40 issues later being against them. But here's what's funny though. When she defected and went to the suppression squad, a lot of fans said that she became better, that she became more popular, she became more of a character, she had more of a personality. And quite honestly, I agree with them. I look at Fiona and I say, man, she's become more entertaining than she ever has. But not saying that, had Ian Flynn decided, hey, we'll keep it with the Freedom Fighters, that she wouldn't have been as entertaining, because she would have. Hold on. Sorry about that. Just thought I heard something again, or heard somebody. But like I said, I think she would have had, a great personality and great character development had Ian Flynn decided to have her stay with the Freedom Fighters. But that didn't happen. Now, some might say that the reason Ian Flynn had her jump ship is because maybe he didn't understand why all of a sudden here she was, basically, well, if you count 125 as well, but he couldn't understand that, why was she suddenly part of the Freedom Fighters? What was the reason? I mean, sure, you had Ken Penders or Carl Bolas or whoever give a reason for her to join. I mean, I think she even mentioned this reason to Sonic. And yet you have Ian Flynn still, like some of us, thinking, yeah, that's a good reason, but still, what was the real? But still, why? Why all of a sudden now? So I'm guessing that's why he did what he did. Some might also say that, Ian Flynn did what he did because we needed more female villains. And that might be true. But, the honest answer to that is we'll never know. Again, I can only suffice to think that he did it for those two reasons. That one, he still just didn't get why she was part of the group, and that she needed a reason, a real reason. And then I think also he just wanted to have another female villain in the comic. Mission accomplished, but all he did is he didn't turn her into a female villain. He turned her into an anti-hero. End of story. I mean, that's how I look at the Suppression Squad. I look at them as being nothing more than anti-heroes. Maybe with the exception of Scourge, but still that's how I see them. Mercenaries, anti-heroes, you name it. But that's how I see it. Because why would you dedicate one of the issues in the Journey to the East sub-arc to the Iron Dominion arc to them wanting to get back their teammate when they could have just said, hey, hey, the heck with him, we don't really need him if you really wanted to make them villainous. It's because you're showing them, Ian Flynn showing them, Tracy Yarland showing them, or showing us that they're not really evil, they're just antis. They're basically, they're just basically maybe, they're basically anti-heroes. They'll do the right thing when it needs to be done, but they'll do it their way. They'll do it how they want to do it. So, it's the same with the Lockdown Sonic Universe arc. When Scourge was, broke out, they could have easily left him there, but no. They did what they felt was the right thing to get him out and get him back his freedom. So there you go. But again, getting back to the whole Sonic versus Tails deal and how this is all part of it, after 172, we kind of get a little bit of a mention of, we kind of get Tails mentioning it a little bit in 174, which is the Bunny Antoine wedding issue. And then we sort of get a little bit of a confrontation at the end with Tails, not at the end, but, towards, at the beginning of 176, which is part of the 175 three-part anniversary issue, which also sees the destruction of Knothole, if you will. So we have a little bit of a confrontation between them there, and then finally we get the blow off. Before you know it, we get the blow off. Basically, the blow off is 177, not 177, but 178 and 179. Basically, you have, in earlier issues, you have, I think it's 176, I believe, so it's an issue or two before. Actually, 2 issues before, but I think you get a hint of it earlier before that. But basically, you you have a hint that Tails' father, Amadis, wants to do an uprising against the royal family, because basically he believes that it should be the people that make decisions for the people and not some rulership making the decision. Hold on for a sec. Sorry about that. But like I said, you have you have Tails' father basically making an uprising to the point that, like I said, he feels, and I think the wife is supportive of this. Tails' mom, Rosemary, is supportive of this, that they want to make the decision that only the people should decide what's good for the people and not the royal family. So basically, this leads to Tails' father being, featured on television, and, and Sonic making some, and then watching this, Nicole showing him this, and Sonic makes some kind of remark that I guess kind of upsets Tails and a little bit upsets Rosemary a little bit, because Sonic's, I guess, like, kind of trying to blow it off like, hey, it's no big deal, he'll get over it and all that. But anyway, long story short, this leads to Tails' father being arrested, and later on at night, it leads to Tails and his mother breaking into the security prison and breaking out Tails' father. That's what it leads towards. It leads to Tails and his mom breaking out Tails' father, and you have Nicole, who's shocked about this, goes to tell Sonic what's going on, tries to tell Sonic, but you don't know who, tries to yell at Sonic, and Sonic takes off, says, hey, you don't know who it is. Let me tell you who it is first. But yet he doesn't hear this, and when he sees who it is, they have a little bit of a confrontation, a little bit of a talk, and when they mention Tails, Sonic's like, look, Tails is a good kid. He practically worships the ground I run on and stuff like that. And then of course you have Tails coming out of nowhere, attacking Sonic from behind, and that leads into the next issue, which is 178, which is part 2 of what's known as House of Cards. And basically you have this confrontation between them. You're having this fighting and all that, and it's basically Sonic versus Tails, and and at the same time you have Amadis going to confront Elias about this, and basically says, look, basically both are like, look, we don't want to have bloodshed, but if we have to, basically one has to go down to prove a point, we will. And of course Elias wants Nicole to go wake his father or wake his parents or something like that. Well, not wake his parents or anything, but Elias doesn't want, this. Basically, Elias tells Nicole, do not let my parents be disturbed. Do not wake them up about this or anything. Yet, there's a flaw in what he says. And I'll get into that in a second. But getting back to the whole Sonic versus Tails situation, basically the fight is escalating. The fighting outside of the prison, the fighting in the park. And Sonic, he wants to know, where's this all coming from? Where's all this anger from you coming from towards me? What's going on and everything. And one of the last things Sonic says before Tails reveals the real reason behind the anger, he says, hey, I'm doing everything to, basically says something like, I've done everything to help you, and this is how you're repaying me? And then finally, when he says something like that, I think that's what he says or something around that, Tails finally comes out and says, "Oh, so dating Fiona Fox, the woman I loved, is helping me." So basically, in tears, he's yelling, "So you dating Fiona is helping me." And, this basically causes the Sonic's portion of the fight to come to a halt when it suddenly hits him when Tails says this. He's like, "Wait a minute. That's why you're angry at me? Because I dated Fiona?" And then you have Tails out of emotion just swinging away wildly and all that, because he feels Sonic doesn't care. And he's like, "Oh, don't you dare try to start any crap, say any kind of crap with me. You know I loved her. You know that. You know this. You know." And then Sonic, in a very mature moment, is like, "Okay, buddy. Look, I'm going to stop fighting. And if this is how you feel, you want to take your emotions out, beat the crap out of me? Now that I know where this anger is coming from and what this anger is about. Here you go. Take a free shot. Go ahead. Beat me up. Take your anger out. Go ahead." So basically, this kind of causes Tails to stop. And it gives Sonic time to get, kind of look at Tails in the eye and say, "Look, man, I'm sorry." And he, like I say, a mature moment says, "Look, Tails, I know I've been a jerk. I know I was a jerk when I was dating Fiona. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I should have let you know, and I should have probably consoled with you. I should have probably let you know that maybe I was going to start dating her, and if that was okay, and stuff like that." And, he basically comes out and emotionally apologizes to Tails, saying, "Look, man, I was a jerk. I shouldn't have dated Fiona when I did, knowing how you feel about her. I should have consulted you first, and I apologize for that." So basically, they do make up. So basically, after the apology and everything, they do make up, and they're buddies again. So after that, they go and race off to Castle Acorn, where you have Amidius and Eliza's fighting. Then all of a sudden, the fighting stopped by like a holographic wall put right between the middle of them. And Nicole basically, and here's the flaw that I talked about earlier with Eliza's. Nicole basically tells Eliza's, "Your Majesty, I did as you said. I did not disturb. I made sure nothing disturbed your parents in their sleeping, but you said nothing about waking up your sister." So basically the flaw was, yeah, don't let this disturb my parents, but I said nothing about not waking up my sister Sally. So that's basically what happened. And Sally, of course, being the more mature one, but obviously the one that should have been in charge in a more properly written way, basically gets a truce done between the two. And the truth is that there will be a governing council with the stipulation that the king will be part of that council and will have that one final vote. And that everyone will vote, and that the king will probably have a final vote in it, but even if his last vote's like in favor or not in favor, he'll still be overruled. End of story. Sort of like the Senate with the president, if you know what I mean. So basically everything is back to normal, everything's hunky-dory and stuff. But of course this also leads us into the Urajak saga, which comes up later on. But again, this is how, and I'm sorry this took so long to explain, but this is how the whole Sonic versus Tails saga came to be and came to an end. Basically due to the fact that it was nothing more than a love triangle started by the fact that Sonic was dating Fiona. Not just Sonic dating Fiona, but it was something that started back in the early to late teen issues, in the backup stories featuring Tails called Growing Pains. But also, later on, throughout, as the comic progressed and everything, manifested itself and evolved into what became sort of a confrontation that was basically, let's face it, if I remember right, was basically about almost, my God, it was like almost, well, let's see, 156 to there, was basically about 21, 22 issues in the making. So, yeah, about almost 2 years. in the making. So, and I know there are some people that don't agree with how it came about, and even if Ian Flynn had finished it and blew it off afterwards, finished it up, I should say. Some people don't agree with how it came about. I mean, you have some people now through fan fiction that's trying to make up for this by trying through their fan fiction stories get Tails back with Fiona and vice versa. But I think right now, though, there are more fans in favor of a Tails Nicole shipping than they are Tails Fiona shipping. And like I said, I'm not going to be surprised if Ian Flynn does take that idea of Tails and Nicole being together and works it into the comic down the line. Don't be surprised by that. But anyway, that's basically how this whole Sonic vs. Tails saga came to be. So I hope whoever requested this enjoyed it. I hope a lot of you enjoyed it.